Okay, it is 6:30 PM and we'll call to order this meeting of the School Improvement and Performance Management Subcommittee. That's quite a title. Yeah, exactly. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Chairperson Martin?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Mr. Dillon?
Here.
3 present.
Excellent, thank you. So we are gathered here tonight. We're going to be bringing in members from our school site councils who are going to be presenting to us on the process they have used, both in convening and in their fair student funding process. So Dr. Guillory, if you could maybe launch us off, that would be great. I understand they'll be presenting remotely, but we're all here in person.
All righty, thank you. Good evening, committee members. As you stated tonight, we have an array of district schools that are represented here by their school site councils. They are going to walk us through the process that they use to develop their school improvement plan, their quality improvement plan, as well as their budget. So we've afforded each school approximately 10 minutes, and because there are 9 of them, it's going to be very important that we do stay on time. I know it's going to be that temptation to have a lot of rich, deep dialogue, but we have to keep in mind that we do have quite a few to get through tonight. So without further ado, and I'll be the timekeeper, committee Chairwoman Martin, if that's okay with you. And the first school that will be up will be the Lowell High School team, and they will walk us through. They'll share their screen, so we should be able to see their documents and the monitors in front of us. Lowell High.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. We have our school site council here, so we're get right to it. With us today, we have Giovanni Mukwanya, who's an LHS student. We have Peter Doherty, LHS parent, Stacy Nelson, LHS parent, Emily Steinberg, LHS teacher, Wayne Taylor, LHS teacher, and Michael Fiato, that's me, and the head of school. Thank you for having us today. So I'll start off by saying that our high school is founded upon a vision of creating a high school design for the 21st century, thinking about how we can move our school forward, future-oriented, preparing students to be at the center of everything we do, and instituting a plan for post-secondary pathways for all students. Our budget sets the foundation for those structures to be put in place and all the systems and supports necessary for our students to graduate, ready for college, career, and life. And at the centerpiece of all of this work is equity and access. We want to ensure that all students have these opportunities to engage in the highest level of evidence-based core instruction and post-secondary opportunities, such as career pathways, early college, and after dark programs, and other programs that are happening at the high school that we are looking to scale up and ensure that all students have access to some sort of program like that. Presenting next slide will be Emily Steinberg. Emily is a teacher at Lowell High School, and she'll talk about how we thought about our alignment and in terms of aligning our goals with our ongoing initiatives. Emily?
Sorry about that, I was muted. So thank you, Mr. Fiato. Lowell High School is in our second year of turnaround. And as Mr. Fiato said, we are dedicated to creating a high school designed for 21st century learning. This includes high expectations for both staff and students, involving data-driven decision-making and a collaborative effort to complete this work. This, of course, means we need to address the needs of our identified student subgroups, which are students with disabilities, Asian students, and white students, engaging all stakeholders in this process and overall improving the school climate as a result. For post-secondary success for all students, this involves the creation of post-secondary plans for all students, whether it be college, entering the job market, entering a trade. We're hoping that this will lead to a decrease in the dropout rate because students will have that vision of what they're going to be doing post high school. We'll expand and open up access to programs that have been started, including early college, the After Dark program in collaboration with the VOC, realigning our pathways and creating internships, which will give students exposure to their chosen field, establish networking connections, and allow students to see the relevance of the coursework in their real world applications. In addition, we're going to be using restorative practices to reconfigure our in-school suspension model, hoping to decrease the overall suspension rate by increasing a sense of belonging in the community. This will teach students how to improve and repair their relationships by actively participating in the work, getting to the root cause of the behavior and participating in righting that wrong. Our work will focus on Portrait of a Graduate, incorporating the core competencies of mind, heart, spirit, skill, network, and leadership into our curriculum. These will ultimately serve as graduation competencies and give students the tools they need to develop their own vision of success. The process was completed. The head of school shared information with the school site council to help us guide our decision-making process based on the school's goals and visions. And the school site council simply aligned the resources with these goals. I'd like to introduce Peter Doherty, who's an LHS parent, to speak about the overview of our budget decisions now.
Thank you, Emily. So as we were going through our budget decisions, we had to align what Emily was talking about and what Mike was talking about in general to make sure that we aligned our dollars to the goals so we can meet those goals. And we came up with 4 positions. We had to trade off some other positions that we wanted, but these were the ones that we came up with to best align to those goals. The data analyst position, this is to allow equitable access to data, help close the gaps relating to real-time decisions on student performance. This will allow to make that data, kind of bring it to life and help guide those decisions for the school community. The associate head of school was something that's been in the works for last year and I got pushed off. This is something that we definitely feel is needed for additional administrative presence to co-manage the high school curriculum in the post-secondary plan to improve student achievement overall at the school. We also feel there was a need for another social worker. This will allow us to help reduce the suspension rate, increase student attention, and address SEL needs. Overall, especially coming out of a year of a pandemic, we feel that the SEL needs of students will be imperative. So this is a definitely important position. Also, with a lot of the initiatives that we had, we felt there was a need for additional teacher stipends to help align with that current curriculum that we have, especially the Portrait of a Graduate implementation. So we decided to add funds for more teacher stipends. Next, I'd like to introduce Giovanni Maquagna, a student at Lowell High School.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. As we all know, I am a student at Lowell High School. I'm a junior. And some of the issues that we've seen as for the teachers was the unavailability or, the inability to have data, access to data and the data systems in our school. And this was, hindering their ability to help students and get closer to students and help them, succeed in, their high school and post-secondary high school life. So that is one of the reasons why we are, thinking of getting a data analyst, because we need an increase in accountability, an increase in the information and the oversight of this information and availability of data. And to add on to this, we would also, need a social worker to help out with, rolling out more restorative practices to build our community. We don't just want to put kids into detention centers and tell them, don't do this, don't do that. We also want to get to know them and to know maybe why this is happening. Maybe it's something that's happening in, domestic environments that we need to help and figure out. So getting a social worker, getting students the right and the proper help that they need is very important. And I know as I'm graduating next year, I am really excited about that. But one of the things that I really want to see improve and am excited to see improving is the curriculum. Because I know this year I was a bit disengaged with the curriculum because I could see that some of these things were helpful, for taking the SATs, but is it going to help me once I get out of high school? And so the curriculum and the instruction improvements that are going to happen next year are really something I'm looking forward to, and seeing how our curriculum is going to change so that not only does it help us for the future, but it helps us to establish what we call Portrait of a Graduate. And this is basically what we're going to infuse into the curriculum, the competition competencies of the portrait of a graduate is basically, having the availability and being ready to go out into the world. So I am excited to see all of that happen by, changing the curriculum, adding these new posts into our school. And yeah, I'm really excited for that.
So that concludes our presentation. I do believe we hopefully set aside some time for questions from the committee.
I don't know if there are any immediate questions. I know that we are trying very hard to stay on time and on task. Is there anything pressing? We can always follow up at a later point. Did you have a question, Ms. Doherty?
I think we should hear the presentations and then talk in general. If people are able to stay online,
Okay.
that would be great.
I think that sounds super. Okay, so we'll be able to move forward. I will tell you, my only hope is that I hope every school has a slide entitled New and Exciting, because that's going to be what carries us through the presentation. Thanks to everyone at Lowell High for taking the time. And I would say, Dr. Guillory, we will be receiving these slides after. Excellent. Okay, great. I'll turn it back to you to bring us to our next group.
Thank you. Excellent job, LHS. Next, we have the Shaughnessy. Dr. Passeri.
Thank you, Dr. Guillory. So thank you to the school committee, Superintendent Boyd, and the cabinet for giving us the chance to speak today. I'm Greg Passeri, principal of the Shaughnessy School. And I'm very fortunate to have a staff that works extremely hard for our students, because this work reflects much more than just me. Several of our members are here tonight, including parents Kim Betancourt and Samantha Jones, teachers Sarah Brown and Karen Walton, and we also have Mr. Sean Schiffer of the Salem 5 Bank, who is a graduate of the Lowell Public Schools. So I'll just take you through some of our process and our related goals. So we want to continue to maintain effective systems that maximize student and staff support, and they provide ongoing consistent data to inform current and future planning, because school improvement is something that's always ongoing. It's not something you do all at once. It's a continual process. And this includes leadership structures such as evaluation, curriculum, student support meetings. And it also is support of district curriculum through structured common planning with regular time for coaching in PD and ELA math and social emotional learning. It's a focus on parent outreach. And we also provide PD for teachers and paraprofessionals that help them find success. And that was especially important this past school year. Our site council is involved in goals, facility updates, regular data review, and we have open discussion of priorities. There's collaboration between our site council and our ILT to discuss school goals and priorities. And there's also work between our site council and our PTO so we can hear directly from our parents. Additional feedback was provided by our teachers on goals and priority areas for our QIP. And we've also had cooperation between our community members and our school staff to work towards school improvement. We made great strides there, but obviously in the pandemic, this was a little bit more of a challenge. So I will now turn it over to teachers Karen Walton and Sarah Brown for our priority areas.
Hi, good evening. As you know, needs and priorities are always driven by data. And together with our ILT team and with teacher voice, a tremendous need was found to be in the areas of phonemic awareness and phonics at the lower elementary level. These programs you see on the slide are already being implemented and will be implemented in the fall in the following grade levels. In addition, rebuilding our library with current and relevant material will also be an ongoing project. And priority 2, the pandemic, as you know, has forced us to really look more closely at our social emotional learning needs of our students. And at the Shaughnessy right now, we have piloted Open Circle with tremendous success. I'd like to give the next slide to Sarah Brown.
Our third priority is to expand our focus on growth in math instruction. So we have a math writing intervention that was started last year and continued into the school year. It was data informed and created by the Shaughnessy teachers with collaboration of their math coach. We also piloted ST Math this year at all grade levels, and we were awarded a 3-year grant, which will start in September of 2021. Our fourth priority is to increase student discourse in all classrooms. We worked with our ILT last year to start this work, and it's ongoing and has been evolving over this school year. We have collected some school level data and worked also with the district math specialist to provide some professional development to teachers. We are trying to increase more opportunities for students to have academic focused discourse with their peers.
So, and I want to note that Mrs. Brown was being modest. She is the math coach. I just wanted to point that out when she mentioned the math coach. So next, I'll just quickly take you through some budgetary decisions to better align our resources. So our primary decision to support our priority areas was the addition of 2 additional tutor positions. And we felt like this was the best use of the resources we had right now, and it would provide the Shaughnessy School and all of us the yearly flexibility to reassess. It wouldn't lock us in any one direction. It would allow us to revisit that every year. We felt strongly to maintain our coaching positions, which allow us to continue what has worked well. As our teachers mentioned, our priority areas, a lot of them are governed by data that is teacher driven, designed in conjunction with our coaches, with our leadership team. So we wanted to allow to continue funding positions that worked well. We also wanted to prioritize funds for complete PD. And this year in the pandemic taught school leaders and teachers and everyone in school communities that you have to be prepared for what you never know is around the corner. So we want to provide training to staff in elements of phonics for optimal implementation. We want to continue to unpack Open Circle, which Mrs. Walton mentioned. And we want to provide implementation resources for teachers for ST Math and also Letterland. And lastly, we want to properly utilize our instructional leadership team and our social emotional learning teams, because teachers, administrators, school staff are very busy, and a lot of times this planning needs to happen outside of school hours. We also want to allocate resources, as Karen shared, as part of our general funds to make major investments in literacy for students and teachers. Materials had to be distributed to students for use in remote learning. And much of our professional library needed to be updated with more relevant resources. And this work at the Shaughnessy started actually a couple of years ago when Chief Desmond issued some guidance on schools to go through and update resources. And we want to continue to prioritize funds to do that very important work, because teachers need books for students that continue to support district curriculum. Some last items: prioritize funding for ST Math and Letterland implementation, and if needed, additional funding for integrated technology. And some long-range goals would still be a reading teacher, and another goal of mine and some of our team members is a part-time parent liaison. And next, I'm going to turn it over to parents, Samantha Jones and Kim Betancourt, for our last part, a parent perspective, what is exciting.
Hi, everyone. Samantha Jones here. Yeah, so as a parent, I think, Greg touched on a couple of these points previously, but from a parent's perspective, adding additional tutor positions is something that's just going to be so valuable for these students, especially given the year that we've had. And, we've seen a lot of students struggling academically, and I'm sure that is going to carry over into the upcoming school year. So to really have those additional tutors will provide a lot of support and value, especially to parents who we're not teachers. I wish I was a teacher and could, have helped my son maybe a little bit more this year, but that's definitely not our specialty. So it's great to have experts in that area here to help our students. The additional funding for professional development and literacy, again, I think, teachers just as much as students should constantly, be going through training and education. As we can see, things change in our world so quickly. And I think teachers need to be able to adapt to that and to the needs of their students. So continuing that from a parent's perspective, to me, is extremely impactful. And then one other thing that I'll touch on is the continuous communication that we've had since last year, right? Since March of 2020. As somebody who, academically has a background in communications, I value it very much. But as a parent, having the teachers, the specialists, the principal and VP always being extremely transparent with us, keeping us up to date on Class Dojo through email, through the voicemails, right? Really taking a multi-pronged approach to make sure that these messages are getting out to parents and to the students, and also being, willing to jump on a Zoom, respond to an email. I've never had a teacher not respond to me. I've never had Greg not respond to me, right? Everybody has been so responsive and quick to answer any questions. So from my perspective, that has been one of the biggest things over this past year in this remote setting. And then Kim, I think Kim was going to speak on the last three.
Yes. Our PTO has been very productive even through COVID. We took on, we had a lot of challenges, but we did a parent support group with the PTO with our school with our social worker. We continued building up our success with our community meetings. Our PTO and our school site council is very intertwined with each other. We had a lot of things planned that we had to put on hold, of course, because of the pandemic. And our community members are very active with our school committee. They were going to help us with numerous activities we had planned for last year.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen. And I know the committee said that they would hold questions until the end in a general fashion.
Thank you, Shaughnessy team. Next up, we have Mr. Karabatsos and the Riley team.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guillory, Michael and LHS, and Greg and Shaughnessy. Great job. So I am pleased to announce my council, Jess Gallagher, Amy Ippolito, Kelly Dunham, Lisa Seaver, and Beth Welch, all teachers on the council. And Beth is here with us this evening. She would not miss a school committee meeting. Our parents, Candace Byler, Julie Durkin, Erin Marshall, and Jeffrey Wilson. And we are still actively recruiting a community partner. So I'm hoping this presentation will entice someone in the community to join us. So, historically, we have always tried to reach out and entice our diverse voices in establishing our school-wide goals as well as our budget. But the School Site Council and our school-based funding has truly allowed us to reach out and bring in those diverse voices. So here's a timeline of our quality improvement plan and budget development process. So as I said, we've reached out back in January by providing both staff and families with a needs assessment questionnaire. And really the questions got to what is working well at the Riley School, what are some areas of improvement, and for the staff, what is needed in terms of professional development to help you provide support and guidance with these goals. Then from there, our instructional leadership team took the responses from both staff and family and started to develop focal areas and through lines and see the commonalities. These then draft goals were brought to the School Site Council, in which we reviewed them. We drafted some goals. It was brought back to not only ILT, but the whole staff. And then you can see that the process was finalized in early March and then voted upon in late March. So truly a school-wide effort with all stakeholders having a voice in the say. So from that process, we developed these goals. So on the left-hand column is where we truly honor our shared leadership. Our ILT, instructional leadership team, we offer curriculum instruction and assessment cycles, which are 6-week cycles in which we really dig deeper into the content, into the curriculum. We review the assessments that are necessary to see if students are attaining the content and the goals that we are setting. And our common planning time and PLCs, which teachers utilize to dig further into this information. The second column represents our school-wide goals. So from there, we've established that we're in need of a phonemic awareness and phonics program. We're also in need of further differentiation of our Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. We're in need of English learners and students with disabilities, those programs to support those achievement gaps. And we need to continue to integrate our technology. And we've learned a lot in this past year of the necessity for technology integration. The third column represents the student supports. So what will we take a look at to assess whether these goals are being met in the assessments of students and not only staff. And part of this goes to our student assessment team and our teacher advisory team, and really looking at the kids that are struggling and the needs that align. Finally, the last column is our climate and culture. And so this is where the excitement comes in, and truly trying to match what we're doing in terms of our goals with gaining the excitement that the kids have coming into school. And then based on these goals, we take a look at what are our budget priorities. So based on those priorities, we've allocated funds for our Foundations Phonics program, which we've begun this spring and will continue into next year. We've allocated money to a tutor, as well as money towards our professional learning communities, in which teachers work before and after school to dig deeper into the curriculum and assessments. We have allocated money towards 2 additional paraprofessionals to support our ELS and Students with Disability program, as well as 1 ELS teacher to round out our ELS team of 3. And then finally, money towards our technology integration and multicultural staff training. So again, the exciting part is that the teachers and the families will know that we have sort of a concerted effort in focusing on a more consistent program of instruction and assessment. The kids might not be so excited about that, but they will be still excited to come to school into a engaging environment, which is portrayed in our monthly social emotional learning themes. And through that, they will gain that instruction and learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Karabatsos. Next, we have the Merkland team with Mr. Andriolo.
Thank you, Dr. Irwin, and thank you to the school committee members who are in attendance. So at the Merkland School, we are excited that we've completed this process of developing our QUIP and our budget for the coming school year. As a school, when we're going through this process, we always try to keep our beliefs, our habits, our values at the forefront, and that's supporting all students to achieve high standards, having that sense of a student-centered environment, listening to one another as a staff, creating that alignment, and then that shared ownership of all students and outcomes. So through the process, there's 3 goals that we'll talk to today. The first is, and again, I believe it was the Shaughnessy, and it sounds like, the Riley as well, with regard to the phonics piece in terms of that alignment, is to increase our student ability to develop foundational phonemic awareness and phonics skills. And I'd like to introduce, so for teachers, we have Jessica Genninger, who's on, Roxanne Damaris, who's on, Tracy Mainville. And for parents, we have Zalika Henry and Pete Sylvain. And so with that, Ms. Genninger. Jess, I believe you're muted.
Of course I am. Sorry. I was going on and on too. Research has shown that learning the alphabetic principle is essential to learning to read, and phonics is best taught when it's systematic and explicit. At the Merkland, we have been implementing a more focused and intentional phonics curriculum over the past couple of years, pulling materials from many different sources. Once we started teaching this way, we noticed significant gains in students' reading ability, as well as their confidence in solving unknown words. As a school site council, we looked closely at reading data, and it was clear that students who had a strong phonics foundation were more successful readers. Though our students have benefited from this more focused approach to phonics, we believe that students would make even more gains through a formal phonics program that is research-based and proven effective. For the upcoming school year, we will allocate funds for the Wilson Foundation's program for kindergarten through second grade. In addition to the materials and curriculum guides, teachers will receive training and support throughout the year. We are looking forward to seeing the great impact this will have on all Merkland students in the years ahead.
Thanks. And so our second piece is to provide students with more efficient access to the ELA and math learning blocks by identifying and applying our most effective e-learning tools into our traditional curriculum. We feel as though there's been a lot of really good that has actually come out of this year with regard to accelerating our ability to implement technology in the classroom, obviously both online and both in the actual classroom setting. And so we're actually really excited to take the best of what we've done and weave it into our curriculum. Roxanne.
Hi, so to add on to Kevin's statement, as part of our action step for this goal, we gave a needs assessment survey at the Merkland School, and the results were over 90% of our teachers agreed to 12 hours of summer professional development, as well as 1 hour per week outside of the school day for professional development. And we think this kind of says a lot about the school culture at the Merkland School when we have over 90% of our teachers and staff are open to this idea.
And so our final kind of big action item or big goal next year is to really that idea of reestablishing engagement strategies to successfully access our rigorous curriculum and of course close those achievement gaps. We certainly noticed that at the beginning of this year that students were actually between 6 and 9 months behind where they typically would be at the start of a school year. And so we will be dedicating resources with hiring of new additional tutors to work towards continuing to close those gaps, because we've actually noticed that we've accelerated the closing of that gap, but we certainly have a ways to go. In addition, we feel as though, again, the classroom engagement strategies through our responsive classroom approach will be critical at the start of the year in order to, in a sense, accelerate the process at which we usually go to support students with engaging in hopefully that traditional school year that is ahead. And so with regard to allocating of resources, as Mrs. Damaris said, we are providing a lot of PD next year. One thing we learned in redesign 10 years ago at the Merkland was investing in the teachers, and the teachers matter the most. And so it's certainly not just a program that's going to support. We can buy all the programs we want, but if we don't actually support the implementation of those programs and the teachers who are doing that work, it will just be a false start. And so we will be dedicating a large amount of funds towards the PD that she had mentioned. We're purchasing the phonics kits that Mrs. Genninger mentioned. We will be adding a handful of tutors. We've noticed with the ClearTouch devices that students certainly engage more, and with our goal of weaving in the best of our e-resources, those devices will certainly help. We have a part-time parent liaison that we were able to add last year, which has been a tremendous support for the school. And we're also adding a stipended parent liaison. And so with that, new and exciting, I think one of the things we hear the most from our parents is how much they actually miss coming into the building, believe it or not. And so I think that we have a lot of trust with our families in terms of our rigorous curriculum and how we approach learning and social emotional learning. But the excitement is really, they want to be back in the building. They want to have family fun nights, writing celebrations, winter festivals, and the traditional events that we've had in years past. And so that is, I think, what's forefront for a lot of families. And so with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Andriolo and the Merkland team. Next, we have the Robinson team. Miss Dowling, I think I see you there. Bridget, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Just got that. Sorry about that. So I want to thank our parents and teachers that are here tonight. Bridget Marshall, Jake Bridge, Andrea Hextall, Melissa DeRoches, and Tracy Young from our site council members. Our QUIP development process is that our instructional leadership team, made up of 8 teachers and 5 administrators, made up from different content areas, grade levels, and specializations throughout the building, come together to review school-wide goals monthly and collect data points for each goal, as well as plan PD around these goals. This team meets twice monthly. So in December, the team broke into 4 groups for each strategic objective and identified solid data points with next steps for school year 21-22. By February, each subgroup had identified goals, actions, benchmarks, and measures for school years 21-22. The QUIP process was reviewed with Site Council as it was going on, and the final QUIP for 21-22 was shared with the Site Council on 3/15 in preparation for our meeting on 3/30 for review. So our first goal is our strategic objective leadership, shared responsibility and professional collaboration. We as a school believe in a community of practice through leadership, shared responsibility, using autonomy and authority to improve teaching and learning. This is apparent throughout the school building in the form of an active, well-representative instructional leadership team, grade level and vertical teams. Administrators and teachers are jointly committed to and have assumed shared ownership and collective responsibility for improving student achievement. We are responsible together for monitoring and assessing the implementation impact of key improvement strategies, identifying resources, classroom instructional practices, and non-academic supports on student achievement. For intentional practices for improving instruction engaged learning, our goals are increasing students' writing proficiency by implementing a school-wide cross-content literacy plan. We're increasing students' reading proficiency by implementing a school-wide cross-content literacy plan, and increasing student articulation, verbally and in writing, through implementation of school-wide common instructional strategies. Our student supports and instruction to all students provide opportunities to meet students at their readiness level by engaging students in multimodality approaches like UDL and strategies such as workstations, word work, word walls, including WIDA, CANDUS, provide weekly opportunities for special education and ESL teachers to collaborate with general education teachers and facilitate lessons and strategies within the classroom setting. And students will participate in daily intervention where a teacher or coach has designed differentiation for readiness with interventions and accelerations designed to maximize student growth. Strategic objective 4 is school climate and culture. It is our goal to reduce the number of students identified as chronically absent as compared to school year 19-20 through the utilization of existing school-based and community-based systems of support. We're also looking at reducing the number of out-of-school suspensions as compared to school year 19-20 through the utilization of alternative responses to behavior. And we are provide a culturally and behaviorally responsive system of support in order to increase community school-based involvement. So with that, our major budget decisions based on these school-wide goals. During school year 2020, our school site council deliberated on the best use of additional funding from the fair student funding model. It was determined by the team and voted on unanimously by parents to hire two additional ESL staff at the Robinson Middle School. Those staff were not able to be hired this year, so the team agreed to move that goal forward for this year, upcoming year. So this matches up with our school sustainability plan goal to adequately service all dual language students in order to best support their progress towards mastery of standards of Massachusetts, as well as language development, and it matches up with strategic objective 2 and 3 on the QUIP. Our current ESL lead can do more professional development with staff in order to build capacity with all staff to provide supports for all students. This matches with strategic objective 1, 2, 3, and 4. And increase inclusion support in order to have co-teaching in classes for students who have flipped out of L status but still need supports. So strategic objectives 1, 2, 3, and 4 are also addressed with that goal. So our budgetary decisions. You can see that our overall budget was $6,256,163. Our teaching staff, the total staffing was $6,227,092. We used $195,908 fair student funding addition for 2 ESL teachers. And that leaves $29,000 for general supplies. We are breaking that up from technology, $86,37, and general supplies, $20,433. Exciting opportunities for students. We have student leadership opportunities that we've been creating the past couple of years. We have National Junior Honor Society, Community Service Group, our student ambassadors, and our student council. And those students take a lead in ownership in the school, providing feedback and support for the school and the culture. We are also building in our hallmark experiences back to the Robinson. We would hopefully we'll be able to bring back our 7th grade trip to Yellowstone Park next year. We haven't been able to do it the past couple of years due to COVID. And Mount Monadnock climb for each grade level. And instructionally focused off-campus learning opportunities increased. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dowling and the Robinson Group. Next, we have Ms. Coleman and the Lincoln Group.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're delighted to be here, so thank you very much for inviting myself and our team in. I'd like to introduce my team to everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I cannot see the slideshow from my end.
We can't see it either.
And you're not alone. How about that? Hold on one moment. Let me try to share that. The best laid plans.
We got it now.
All righty. I'm glad it's up and operational. Let me just come right in here too. Okay. All right, so for the Lincoln, I would like to start off by introducing the members of my team. None of this would be possible without them. So I will start off with my teachers. We have a new member this year, 2 new members, and that would be Jessica Williams and Deb Janis. We also have Rachel Margaglione on our team as our teacher. We have a parent liaison that's been a part of our team, Miss Kim Lambourne. And we have 3 parents on the team. Tonight we have Beth Gaspar, who is able to join us, but I would be remiss if I did not mention Jessie Gary or Jeanette Barrios. We've also had a really wonderful partnership with the Food Corps and Mill City Grows. In previous years, we did also have Maycom involved, so we were very fortunate to have those partners, especially because we have the garden and it's such a big part of our school that those relationships are critical. We are a four-strand elementary. We currently have 24 classrooms. I've given you a little bit of a breakdown here. We operate with 2 pre-K, 4 of each of the K to 4, and we have 2 adjustment classrooms, which is equivalent to 22 gen ed teachers, and we have 2 of the special ed classrooms. We operate with 2 pre-K paras for kindergarten, 5 mainstream. We have 1 one-to-one and 2 adjustment. We are currently hiring, as we did have many retirements this spring and during the school year. So we are currently doing that. When we started our process, and I'm going to be delegating much of this over to the team because I think that it's very important to hear it from the members of the team that were able to experience this. So when we talk about the process, I'd like to kick that off with Mrs. Margaglione, if you're comfortable. Mrs. Margaglione?
Sure, sounds good. Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Coleman.
You're welcome.
So when we started thinking about developing our QUIP, we really looked back at our mission statement that had been written for the Lincoln and by previous committees. And we really looked at our commitment to creating a safe environment for all of our students, but also an environment where we hold our students to high standards, trying to raise the level of achievement for all of our students, regardless of where they come in terms of skill level. And we also talked about the importance of the teacher in the classroom really being skilled in being able to hold students to high standards. And so our initiatives really tied to our mission. And we looked at how we can create that mission. So how we can achieve that mission, excuse me. And so we looked at the things that we were doing really well. And one of the things that we tried to do was get some feedback from different grade levels in our school. And so we had them, we had all of the teachers at all of the levels, plus our special education teachers, fill out a survey where what was working really well, and then where we felt we still needed support in order to do better for our students. And we came back to the table, and you can see some of our initiatives here, looking at PD and materials for kindergarten and grade 1, purchasing Letterland, and really thinking about our interventions like decodable text, and starting on school-wide professional development in letters. And also having lots of programs that our kids could go on in order to build up all of their skills. And so that's really where we started with our QUIP and tying our initiatives together.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to ask if we could have Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Gaspar just talk a little bit about the process after we had looked at our goals and triangulated some of our data to develop some of these plans that ended up working into our final QUIP. If you could just speak a little bit to what the budget process was like for both of you, taking a look at that large line item and then working through the spreadsheet.
I'll go first. So I'm the first year on this one. So this whole process was completely new to me. So when I saw the budget and I saw the really large number at the top, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, where does all that money go? And then we got down into the dirt of it, and we saw, well, some of it goes to staffing and their benefits and such, and then some of it goes to trainings, and we were able to, do a really good job of getting, well, I feel like we're getting some really amazing stuff into our school this year, and in for next year, based on the numbers and what we had. Obviously we had some help from like ESSER and stuff like that. So I think we have a lot of new technology coming in. We have a lot of programs that we're going to be able to utilize. I'm not going to repeat it all because Rachel had just said a lot of that too. But the whole process was completely eye-opening and way more detailed than I ever could have imagined for a budget process. But it was nice to be a part of it. And, I hope that as we go, I'll be able to add more of my own, input, and not just, I did a lot of sitting back and learning this year, but we have a lot of good stuff coming our way.
We really do appreciate that perspective, especially being a new member. And so from the parent perspective, if Beth, if you'd like to kind of highlight some of our, instead of just the budget and the staffing and triangulating our data to our growth, because obviously we know we still have work that needs to be done foundationally, which is where we were really looking at enriching a lot of our supports. But I think it's important to highlight, like, it's not, I mean, we are all about academics, and anyone that works here will tell you that. And so we thought, like, okay, well, what's exciting? Like, why the Lincoln? Like, we know that we have some really wonderful things happening here, just like all of the other schools, but we really want to make sure that message gets out. And so this think tank was able to go well beyond, and they were very, very creative, which led us to bringing this with our deep connection with our ILT. So we have a really wonderful functioning ILT group here that we do see as leaders amongst the grade levels in the school. So they carry that information from the school site council to the leadership team, and the leadership team to the school site council, and all of that information gets filtered out to the staff. And so some of these fun conversations, Beth, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Coleman.
You're welcome.
I'd also like to start by saying that the school budgeting process was brand new to me before this year, as far as how the district and schools prioritize and allocate their funds. Seeing a budget of $6 million at first seemed like an exorbitant amount of money, and it was a really eye-opening experience to the reality of like what little funds were actually available to the schools once the staff salaries were deducted. So thankfully, we had the ESSER funds that allowed us as a team to add the enrichment in the form of before and after school programs, which is really exciting. And this is in addition to our already implemented 21st Century program. The new enrichment programs will be provided in opportunities by ways of things like intramural sports, like basketball or soccer, or girls who run kind of club, plus things like chorus or cooking classes paired with, Mill City Grows. As well as other non-academic and academic programs that will help bridge the learning gap due to the pandemic. So this is all really exciting things. The addition of the programs I believe will benefit not only our students academically and socially, but will also help them build and form long-lasting relationships and connections with their families as well as with the school. And I know that parent involvement in our school is not nearly as abundant as we would like it to be. And I also know that when a child sees that their family is invested in their education, then they themselves become more invested as well. So in addition to our enrichment programs, we've also added an outreach to increase parent involvement, including things like more social media platforms and a little live at 5 piece in which we would feature new and important ongoings in the school, which will be really fun. And I believe that the addition of these programs will aid in the family involvement. And that's really exciting because I personally like to think of the Lincoln as my second family, because all 3 of my kids have attended and or are currently going to school there. And I'm grateful to everyone who works there. And I really hope to see more families become more involved in our school.
Thank you, Beth. We really appreciate that. And one thing I did, I want to thank you all for all of your hard work and all the other schools that presented. One thing that we were investing in here was our paraprofessionals. So we were adding an additional paraprofessional, but I think it is a role that we need to make sure that not only are we providing professional development to the teachers, but we are really enhancing one of those key chinks in our chain here. And so we want to make sure too that we're providing them with opportunities to enhance and develop their own skill set. So we thank you very, very much for listening to our presentation. And if there's any questions, we're more than happy to oblige.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Next, we have the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School, Miss Paula Peters and team.
Thank you, school committee members. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Guillory, for inviting the Laura Lee School Site Council this evening. My name is Paula Peters. Sorry. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh God, I thought I was muted for a minute. Okay. My name is Paula Peters. I'm the school coordinator. Also here with us this evening are members of our school site council, which includes Nancy Gomez, one of our parents, Amanda McClellan, a parent, Roseanne Hall, teacher, and Tricia McFarland, teacher. The Laura Lee School is 100% special education. We are a very small school with 5 classrooms. Each classroom has 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional, and we currently have 23 students within our school building. In order to develop our QUIP, we used what we called a needs assessment. And I'm going to walk you through the process of that. So there was a creation of a needs assessment, and I was fortunate that Mr. Karabatsis at the Riley, he was able to share with me the needs assessment that he was using, and I was able to then make adjustments to it and so that it would encompass our school population. So each classroom got the needs assessment questionnaire to complete. So every teacher and every paraprofessional completed one of them. From there, the needs assessment went to our instructional leadership team, and every staff member within the building is on our instructional leadership team. So from there, they were able to look at the completed needs assessment, analyze the data, look for common themes. Then from there, we then took that and brought it to our school site council, our parents, and shared with them our common data that we were seeing and the themes that were showing up within the questionnaire. A parent questionnaire was also created and distributed so that parents had a voice in sharing out what they thought that needed to happen within the school and what our strengths were and what our weaknesses were within the school. From there, we developed our goals. We had 4 goal areas. The first one being increasing math achievement. Different ways that we discussed doing this was creating math intervention groups, using resources within our building to help with this intervention time. What we were seeing within our data, within our iReady data and past MCAS data, was that students were making progress in ELA, but our progress within math area was very slow. So we decided to next year begin those math intervention groups. Our next goal was around, was around SEL, social emotional learning support. So scheduling consistent daily time within our curriculum, within our school, to have social emotional time and curriculum every single day, provide year-long trauma for mental health. The other thing about the Laura Lee is that we don't have a cafeteria or a gym. So one thing that we were noticing is that our students were they eat lunch every day in their classroom. And our goal is to get them back to the least restrictive environment and get them back into the mainstream setting. And so what are some of the skills that they're missing? Well, they don't have the skill set on what it's like to navigate a large cafeteria. So within our building, we're going to create a mock cafeteria to build up some of those skills. Something we also are going to do is meet and collaborate with other public day schools to see what resources they're using. How are they getting kids to transition back to the least restrictive environment? Our third goal is around family involvement. We're going to offer parent trainings, and we'll also use be able to provide materials for those trainings that we need. And then our last goal is to build school partnerships within Lowell Public Schools. One exciting thing that happened during the pandemic for the Laura Lee was that Ms. Coleman at the Lincoln allowed us to use her gym. So we were able to, because we're down the street from the Lincoln, we were able to take our students every Tuesday and utilize her facilities, which was great. The students were very excited. The staff was excited. So we're going to work on building partnerships within the Lowell Public Schools and see what we could do. We could take our kids on field trips. We could take our kids to assemblies. Let's see. Currently, we have 5 special ed teachers, 7 paraprofessionals, a tutor, a coordinator, a special ed social worker. Our major budget decision has to do with our social emotional learning. We are going to have year-long professional development in regards to trauma and mental health. As our needs assessment showed, just having one session of training around trauma and mental health is not enough. So we're going to have year-long professional development. We're actually working with the Brookline Center for Community Health for Mental Health. Their clinicians will come in next year and they'll work with the staff. And they're actually going to help us create a consultative model that we'll be able to utilize and move forward with it in the future. Some discoveries along the way. When thinking about the overall process of developing the QUIP, I would say that it was a collaborative effort. The feedback that we also received was that everyone had a voice. Staff and parents. We also got consistent feedback. And what I mean by that is that what we were hearing from parents and from staff was the same, and what we needed to work on, what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were. Another important piece is that we realized that not all changes need to be financial, that we can use the resources that we have within our own building to help to make some of those changes. And exciting things for next year will be our professional development around social emotional learning, building those partnerships within the Lowell Public Schools, and creative ways to help students generalize skills and transition back to the least restrictive environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. Next, we have Ms. Soares Pena, the principal of the Butler and the Butler team.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, thank you. All right. So, hello, everyone. And thank you for inviting us tonight. Uh-oh, my slides are, I don't know, I'm stuck here. My slides are not moving. All right, I think we're there now. So my name is Teresa Soares Pena. I am the principal at the Butler Middle School. And thank you for inviting us tonight. Our school site council members are here. And with me tonight, I want to give them a big thank you because we had a meeting last week and here they are with me again tonight. So we have Allison Dumas, a parent tonight with us, Fernanda Lopes, our MRT and a teacher at the school, and Sam Kuhn, our community partner. He's with the Middlesex Community College with our TRIO program. So our site council member selection process, teachers elect representatives at the start of the school year. I just let them know. PTO will recruit and elect their representatives, and then the admin team, we try to recruit community members to be on our team. Before I go into our goals, we also, like everyone has described, we have we conduct a needs assessment. We look at data very carefully, all our stakeholders. So the PTO gets involved, the site council, the ILT, teacher teams, and we look at our data. The data that we look at is standardized assessment data. This year, it's can be iReady, MCAS, but no MCAS this year. iReady. We also pay very close attention to attendance. And this year, we also looked at our DESA ratings to inform our social emotional learning, which is a big focus in our school. And we look at report card data. So all of this is reviewed, analyzed, that informs our goals or where we are. And from that, we meet, the site council reviews it. And then we look at the goals actually inform where the budget goes. So I'm going to share, there's 4 goals that we have for the year. I will share that and let you know how we plan the budget around it. We are a school that in the turnaround world. And so we're a school that started the year with a sustainability plan. So kind of the QUIP becomes almost another part of reviewing our process and our work when it comes to the QUIP, because part of how we start the year is with a sustainability. So our first goal, because of the number of students that we have, about 48% reading 3 grades below grade level, we focus on improving reading achievement. That is where we're leveraging most of our budget. It's about 116,000 of it is being applied to this goal, which is majority of the budget that we can spend. We are hiring a reading teacher. In middle schools, we do not have a reading teacher. There are no reading specialists to really look at providing PD for our teachers, and also to provide intervention to students who need reading development work. The other part of the budget, this 116,000, is we're moving the tutors from 15 hours a week to 18 hours a week. So that leveraged money-wise. Our master schedule will include a win block, or what I need block, for students. And in this block, we provide intervention and enrichment support for students. It's school-wide. So some students will get their ESL support. They may get their IEP services during that time, or they're getting enrichment. So we try to target what I need. So part of our budget will go towards instructional materials that we need and professional development to achieve that. The second goal is to continue the work of UDL, or implementing universally designed lessons. This has been part of our improvement plan. We get a grant, a TAG grant or turnaround grant, that supports the professional development. It provides us with a coach that meets and works one-on-one, provides support. We had about 24 teachers take this UDL 101 course, which is a graduate course that was taught by Mrs. Lopes. Shout out to Mrs. Lopes, who learned and taught the class. And then they'll teach the next level, 201 next year is what we're planning. PD funds, we will allocate some PD funds, because sometimes we have to do the professional development after school. So we do leverage some of that. Whatever the TAG grant doesn't cover, we leverage. So there's a link here for detailed budget numbers and how that is spent. So the next one is to support our our SEL work. And I think, Sam, you're gonna share that with us?
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, great to be invited to be part of these meetings. Again, my name is Samkhan Kern. I work with the TRIO program at Peterson College in partnership with the local public school. And we have two middle school with in this program. Anyway, our goal number 3 is to support the SEL work, again, to continue working with the social emotional learning every Friday to implement, get the second step of curriculums, 2 ways to secure and provide the PD on the second step curriculum as needed, to new staff, conduct and use the data ratings, and continue the PBIS implementation and training of staff, and of course continue our digital child implementation with fund from the probation grant. Finally is the additional professional development on equity and culture building using the grant, using the MCI EA grant, which is the Massachusetts Consortium Innovative Education Assessments grant. It's a 1-year grant. These are the things that we use in supporting the work, the social emotional learning at the school.
Okay. Next, I'm going to invite Ms. Allison Dumas, our PTO chair and parent, to speak about family engagement.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Yeah, so as Ms. Pena said, my name is Allison Dumas. I'm the PTO president for the last 3 years now at Butler. And for goal 4, family engagement is really one of our key and crucial goals that we want to do, because at the end of the day, that is really, really an important thing that we need to ensure really all schools are doing, but at Butler, what we're doing. And one of the first things we can do in this case is we're going to hire a parent liaison, which is going to be quite helpful in being a point of contact on site between the PTO, families, and the administration, and also be able to help us with the coordination and implementation of the various projects, activities, and whatever really else is needed to help build up that family engagement around Butler. For point 2, point 2 and 3 really, communication is crucial for family engagement. And with point 1, using the monthly SMORE newsletters on our homepage, which with the built-in tools of the website, which actually is able to be used across the entire website, but not just in SMORE, is the ability to view it in all languages. Which is really a key and crucial thing, especially with Lowell being such a diverse community. We want to ensure that we reach all families no matter what, and that there isn't any form of language barrier that might be preventing somebody from getting this information. So that is really a key piece of software and capabilities that's been implemented on the Butler home site, as well as with the SMORE newsletters. And then for the third point is the repurchasing of the Remind communication app, which will help, and it really has been quite beneficial in helping bridge that gap of communication with parents, staff, students, teachers, and their parents, to build up a tighter group of community to help ensure that updates are being presented. If there is anything that maybe the students need, we're getting it fast, quick, and quite easy. The app is actually quite easy to use, but also it doesn't matter where you are. And that really helps get communication out to families, especially when everybody is either on the go, or in this case, a lot of people are home. But as time goes on and everybody starts returning to daily routines, having that mobile presence is going to be really crucial in getting communication to families. And then the last point, which is our fun and exciting part of our goal for family engagement, is the return to family activities and curriculum workshops as COVID regulations allow us to. And this is really what helps drive not only the school, but as a community, everybody building up a sense of school pride. And really just wanting the kids to be there. And one of our key pieces of this is that we have student involvement. And that, I think, is to the kids so important to them because their voices are heard. So when we do our activities like our family fun days or our haunted Halloween hallway activities or our dances, we ensure that we actually have student involvement. We have them vote and help on. So the return of these activities is going to not only boost morale, but the students want to be there. And in the past, 3 or so years that I've been here as PTO president, I've noticed that there's been a huge uptick in the student participation, but also the parent participation in creating these events, coordinating, setting them up and running them, where students actually want to be a part of these things and because their voice is heard. So that's really, for us, such a key way of building our community by not only inside the school and with our families and our students, but also the community involved, of the various, locations around the school. We also involve that part of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure. That's our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Pina and the Butler team. And last but not least, we have the Pine Arts, Ms. Roberge and the Pine Arts team.
Good evening, everyone. Let me get you to present here. So I know we're hitting it last after a long meeting and a long series of meetings for our school committee members, but we're excited to be here tonight. My name is Wendy Roberge. I'm the principal of the Pine Arts. And with me tonight are school site council parent representatives, Rebecca Starcevic, who is in her first term, and Connor Baldwin, who is in his third term on the school site council. And I'm going to do a very quick overview of our objectives and budget goals for next year. And then I have Rebecca and Connor who are going to share just a little bit more context to their involvement in school site council and what their perspective has been as parents who have been really involved, and what the benefits of school site council and their participation in it have been. So in the district, we have 4 major strategic objectives. We have one under leadership, one under intentional practices for strengthening instruction, one under student support, and one under school climate and culture. So all of the items in our school improvement plan fall under one of these 4 buckets. And so in our QUIP, our first objective, the major components of that for the coming school year are going to be to strengthen our leadership team. Once again, we have a really robust leadership team at Pine Arts. They're called the STEAM team. And we've had a public-private partnership with a School for Gifted and Talented Students, a Sarah School in Winchester. And we're entering into the 3rd year of our partnership with them. And we're going to focus on universal design for learning to complement our project-based learning efforts, but also to really help us redefine what quality teaching looks like, keeping the great parts of what we have learned over the last 14 months with pandemic-related instruction and what the best parts of our traditional learning programs have looked like, so that we really have a good definition and a good common understanding of what quality teaching looks like from this point forward. And we're doing that in the context of exacerbating our anti-racism efforts and building a more culturally responsive curriculum and teaching practices. So under objective 2, which is improving instruction, we want to really focus on some high needs areas which were identified by our teaching staff. And those, like many other elementary schools, included a focus on phonics. So we are one of the schools that is joining in adopting the Letterland Phonics program, which is instructional and technology-related instructional piece. And we are going to also, like some of the other schools mentioned, really look at replacing some of our dated texts and some of the texts that have gone out to students in the homes during the pandemic that haven't come back, and bring in new materials that are going to be more culturally responsive, more updated, and more relevant to students' current interests and some of our new goals. And then in objective 3, we're going to continue focusing on strong Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 student supports. These are going to involve personalized learning, opportunities through some of the technology software components that have been part of our school learning program. And then also some things that don't necessarily cost additional funds, but involve strategic thinking, which is realigning resources for special education within our buildings so that we can continue to increase inclusion, realigning our math intervention program so that we're doing cross grade level groupings to really look at some of that unfinished learning that happened as a result of the pandemic and the school closure. And then the fourth objective really speaks to school culture and climate. We've developed a social emotional learning survey that we are giving 3 times a year, and this is separate from DESA. DESA is something that the teachers rate students on, but our students actually take a survey 3 times a year, and we have worked with a research team from ACERA to ensure that there are questions that get at how connected students feel to our school, how we are doing in terms of honoring culture, diversity of thought, diversity of background in our school, and whether each student feels that Pine Arts is a place where they belong. And so in response to the data that students provide to us from that, we take action steps in order to address any of the gaps that are identified for that. And then another major component under Objective 4, and I'm going to toss the baton to Rebecca Starcevic, is our purchase of Schoology licenses. And I'm going to allow her now to take the mic and share with you what the process was behind that.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. Yeah, I was glad to be part of the School Site Council when something like this is a good example of why I was interested in being part of the School Site Council. The culture at the Pine is something that I've always really appreciated. And this really speaks to the ongoing effort to building community, which is something that's always been there. But of course, the pandemic hits and it's even more important and more challenging. So more and more discussions are coming up about the need to close the communication gap, the need to reach the diverse population of the parents, the need to have a platform, a streamlined platform, rather than having people wondering where their messages are and which thing did they check and which thing did they not check. And also to have information available to them in real time during the pandemic, keeping track of where kids are at academically was challenging too. So in sort of long-term discussions about all of these issues, we were able to bringing everything to the table from the teacher's perspective and the parents' perspective and the administration's perspective. They found Schoology that met all of these criteria. So as a parent, I felt really good about it, that it wasn't something that they were going to experiment on the parents with a big item and see if it works. There was a lot of research that went involved. They knew what our issues were going into it, and they had a lot of good research into this platform, knowing that this is really likely to be successful. So I was really happy to be a part of it.
Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. And to close it out tonight, Connor Baldwin is going to share. He's a 3-term School Site Council member, and he's going to talk with you a little bit about the exciting work that can be done with all of the partnerships that come into play within a School Site Council.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And I promise to be brief. I know everyone's been here for a long night. It's been a really rewarding experience to be part of the School Site Council. And I see the council as a critical link that identifies needs in the school committee and the school community, and is able to match those with resources and partnerships that are available to meet those needs. And I just want to talk about one example of something that our School Site Council has been able to accomplish in my time there. And as many of you know, the Pine Arts is a citywide CSA program in the summertime, and a need that was identified was for an outside play space for the school community to be used in the summertime. And so the School Site Council was able to work with the city manager's office, the Parks Department, the Board of Parks, the DPD, to identify resources that were available, to partnerships that were available. And over a course of about 2 years, was able to work through the permitting process, through the planning process, and to build a park that was specialized for kids with autism, which opened back in the fall of 2019. And so we do participate in all of the budgeting process, just like all of the other school site councils mentioned before us. And that is a very important part of what we do. But we're also, because we're a very high functioning school site council, able to embark into some of these other objectives, capital planning being one of them. And so it's been a very rewarding experience. So thank you very much for your time. I told you I'd be brief.
Absolutely. Whoops. Absolutely. So just to round out, we were not a school that received a ton of extra money, so we were able to take the small amounts that we did receive and distribute them into buckets around our general contracted services, our supplies, our PD funds, and technology. We try and be strategic and as transparent as possible with all of our efforts. And I just, it's been 10 years at the Pine. We've had a very robust and active school site council for all 10 years. And it's been really amazing to see what we've been able to accomplish. So thank you for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Roberge and the Pine Arts team. Madam Chair, I'll take just a second to give you some context that I didn't launch with. But tonight you heard from a K-8 school, you heard from 4 elementary schools, you heard from 2 middle schools, you heard from Lowell High School, and you also heard from one of our therapeutic day schools. So I want to thank you to all the school teams that shared tonight. You saw a few members that volunteered or were voluntold. But committee members, what you couldn't see from your screens was there were about 50 other members that were on the Zoom tonight that were here for more support for their team members as well. I want to say a special thanks to Mr. Tan U, who's here serving as our tech support, and then also to Ms. Minerva Palazzo for working through to set up the meetings tonight. And with that, I yield the floor back to the committee.
I thank you very much, Dr. Guillory. Certainly the subcommittee shares your thoughts in thanking the many, many people that pulled together all of these presentations from the school sites straight up through the administration. I will say I found it technology-wise to be really quite impressive and seamless. So congratulations on that. I don't know if any of the committee have any questions. We can start with Mr. Dakota. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will the school committee be able to get hard copies and/or copies of these presentations that we can look at?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And have all the schools actually not the ones that were presented tonight, but to have all the schools put together some kind of package like that?
Many of them during their budget deliberations actually did do PowerPoint. Some of them just spoke from their budget document. But in essence, each school has a thread that they've worked through in that sense. Some of them just talk from their actual budget document, though, so not all actually prepared a PowerPoint. So this group, they actually, when I polled them and pulled them together, they actually had separate meetings and sort of worked through the presentations that they were shared tonight. But essentially, this was what you saw tonight also was them defending their budgets.
I have one other brief question. There, on the package you gave us the other day, there are some schools that haven't listed names of the members. One of them did indicate that they had those names on the website, but 4 of them did not have.
Say that part again.
On the one you gave us on. What day was that? Monday? There were, I believe there were 5 schools. I wrote it down someplace and I don't know where I put that, but it might be, yeah. The Bailey, the Bartlett, Green Elm, Lowell High School, and Stockholm. Obviously, the Lowell High School put a presentation on, but the other schools didn't have names listed from them for their school site councils.
Okay, I can follow up with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Martin. I just want to say quick thanks to Dr. Guillory and everybody who's involved tonight and over the whole process. It was great for us to see, or for me anyway, to hear it straight from people. I mean, we see on paper, you know, what's going on in meeting times, but actually to hear from them what's going on and to be able to see how much work they're putting into it is great to see. So thank you, everybody involved. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you so much. So I'm going to be quick. I've got maybe an overall comment and then a couple of questions, and I don't know if the technology format allows people to pipe up for answers if they want. First of all, I want to just support what my colleagues have already said. Thank you for your time. I was very impressed by the presentations. I think this committee took a leap of faith last year in saying we're going to give some of that budget power over to the schools, knowing that it was the right thing to do, but also as a district who hasn't had full active school committee, school site councils at each of our schools as mandated by law. That's been an ongoing struggle to get that. It's incredibly important work. I mean, when you think about the strength of collaborating between your building leadership, the frontline workers, our teachers, every day working to educate our students, and the parents who are, I think, the purest advocates for the best education possible for their children. I mean, that work is incredibly powerful and incredibly important. So thank you for your time in doing this. And so my first question is kind of a softball question. How can we help? How can we help to grow the capacity of this group? Because you're going to be getting new parents. I mean, I notice most of them are 2-year terms. Are we looking to, I would think, like ongoing professional development for school site council, something district-wide where you can share from each other's successes. But I would want to hear from you. I know there's been a lot of challenges. It's only the second year. It's during a pandemic. And I don't know if anyone's comfortable to answer now, but that is my first question of two. And I think I'll just give both questions, and then if people want to pipe in on either one. My third question has to do with something Mr. Dakota mentioned about names and contact information. Because these roles are official school leadership roles. Part of my motion, which was not the presentation that you gave tonight, but the report that we are referring to, was asking for the names, the roles, like whether you're a parent, whether you're a staff person, and how to contact you. Because as your school leadership, it's important that people know how to reach you, that parents, especially our parents who are maybe not feeling as connected, not feeling as competent to speak up or express concerns. And so I only found, I went through, there's 28 schools listed in this report. And I went through the website for 10. So I haven't gone through all of them, because that's enough right there doing that. I only found one school that had on its website the actual contact information. If you want to reach this is your, now some schools said this is our school site council, these are the roles. This is a teacher, this is a parent, which was what we asked for. Some schools didn't explain the roles, they just listed. And then I noticed at the very end of the report, there's a list of like school site council _ parent period Bailey at Lowell K-12. So just a generic webmail address. So my question to the body who's represented here, is there some reason why we can't give parents easier access to who their school leaders are on the school site council? And secondly, are you getting much contact from these webmail addresses? Because I do think that bridge is very important, that parents know, I have this concern, I don't know who to go to at my school. And to be able to reach out to a fellow parent is not as intimidating as going to the principal or trying to call office. So sorry, those are long-winded questions, but how can we help? What things would make your work easier, would make your understanding better? And two, what about this being able to be contacted by your fellow parents.
So, Ms. Pina, I'm going to put you on the spot to respond to the first question. What can be done to help?
Okay, thank you for putting me on the spot. Appreciate that. Lots of love, Dr. Gilroy. So I think it's the continued support in us having access to the administration, to the school committee around what our needs are. I think it's listening to when we set up our quibs or when we're identifying concerns. It's to be heard and to problem solve with us during the process. One thing that I'm concerned about is I used ESSA funds to fund a critical position that we identified, and now I'm worried that I may not have that funding once the ESSA funding or those grants go away. So that's the support I would want. I think that's my answer from an administrator. I don't know if parents want to jump in.
Let's see. Miss from the Pine, Miss Rebecca.
Hi, yeah, Mrs. Starcivic. So I've only been on the school site council for a little while. I had the advantage of coming on to a successful school site council with Connor Baldwin, who's very well versed in how it works and how to help. And I had some background and understanding of school committees and town budgeting and educational budgeting coming into this. But I think a parent who has no background and yet wants to get involved may be a little bit intimidated by the idea of site-based budgeting. I don't think they necessarily couldn't do it, but one reason I feel like we're successful at the Pine is I feel like we have a high quality of information. And that speaks to how well prepared Wendy is always at our meetings, and she can convey a lot of information in a very short amount of time to us. So, and I've gained a lot of perspective from everyone on the team of our school site council, talking with the teachers and the administration about their perspective on how to achieve the goals that we have. So I feel like we have a very talented team, and a lot of perspective is shared. And again, the team that I'm coming into has also been together for a long time. So we all have some great advantages, but to a parent who wants to get involved and make a difference, if the question is, what can the school committee do? I would say that when, especially objectives coming from the top down to how we have to make things happen, the more focus that the school committee and the school administration can have on consistency, transparency, and clarity of the budget process is what's going to make it easier for parents. It's a lot of information for them to understand or even sort of fathom how to get involved and make a difference at that level, with the level of detail that a lot of, that the school committee and the administrators have to deal with. So I think there are parents who do want to get involved in making the information more accessible, and like I said, emphasizing consistency and transparency and clarity in the budget process is what's going to make a difference for parents.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Doherty, what was the second question?
Well, the second question had to do with getting the contact information out there in a way that's public, so that if a parent has a concern, they know how to reach a member of their school site council. That there was only one school out of the 10 that I actually went to their website that included contact information. That was the Bartlett. And no school on their school site council page listed these webmail addresses that we have. Now, I imagine there's a website, a URL you can go to, but I was going school by school by school, looking at their school site council, trying to figure out who are my parent representatives, who are my teacher representatives, and I only found one school that included the contact information. I personally find that concerning, so I'm looking for the school site councils who are here to tell me if this is something that they see as being important. If you want to have that two-way communication between parents, I would think that's important, so it's that.
Thank you. So
Contact information.
Okay, so I thought there were three. So in response to that, what several principals reached out and shared concerns about was that their parents expressed concerns about their information being put in the public broadcast. And what we talked about initially, I think at the start of the school year, was to establish a consistent email address that would be the same over the course of years, so that as parents rotate in and out, we're not looking for what the email or the email contact is, and so that would be a consistent way. It also serves as a repository of that information where it sits in one place for many years, so certainly the names can be posted. Principals shared that that's not an issue, but when we start putting the contact information up there for the specific individuals, that's where some concern came around. And so it is not consistent across the board as of yet. But what was referenced in the memo was, I think, the last two lines. There was additionally, our central web team created an SSC email account for each school. The email accounts for each school are the very last page of this response. School leaders are in the process of activating and publishing these email addresses. So you're absolutely correct. These are new email accounts that are being published and set up for the school teams.
Dr. Guillory, could I offer an additional point?
Yes, sir.
From a school perspective. So many of our schools utilize more newsletters, which maintains sort of that privacy and confidentiality within a school community. So a lot of our information shared through their councils go out through those newsletters. Again, so it hits everyone within the community, and at the same time provides that access.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Karabatsos.
Mr. Dakota?
Thank you. On your first question, Ms. Doherty, I thought perhaps MASC might have something to kind of help out with giving our parents a better sense of what they're expected to do on our school site councils. And I think, quite frankly, a way to attract parents would be to minimize the education ease that's kind of spoken through a lot of these presentations, where it could be kind of overwhelming. The acronyms are overwhelming, quite frankly, and I'm sure that there are people that are saying, you know, oh, I don't even know what they're talking about, so how can I get involved with that? And so I think we need to I think we need to either scale it back somewhat in the complex terminology, maybe be able to explain that inside of a meeting, but be more welcoming in terms of making it a little bit easier to understand what they'd be getting into. And isn't it possible for them to get a Lowell Public School email address?
I think we would have to check with our technology department. I'm sorry, our Mr. Overton. I can't think of which department he's in, but he manages our district websites. But again, the idea here is once that person moves on, then that information becomes lost. So the idea is how can our presidents, our co-presidents, have all of this information in one centralized location? How is it an email address that's publicized so that everyone knows what it is? It's consistent across the district. So when I move from one school to the other, it adds that level of consistency and stability for parents as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I think that we have had a full evening, certainly. Just a few kind of parting comments as we go. In terms of the kind of email question, I do think, to Dr. Guillory's point, what we should be looking at is it should be a parent president at the Bartlett. Should be the title. I think for our staff, we should be, we can use their actual email addresses. Those are LPS addresses. But I do think that using the title and being very specific that these are parents. So the parent president is, you know, kind of a title that I think would help other parents feel more comfortable being able to reach out. You know, I also feel, as Mr. Dakota has mentioned, that making this process as user-friendly as we can is how we will continue to increase parent engagement. Again, the whole budgetary aspect of this, I mean, we're in year 2. This is a very new process. It is certainly complicated, but even just to be at the point we're at now, last year we couldn't have had these kind of presentations. So having gone through it once, and certainly in making this motion myself earlier this year, this was exactly what I was hoping we could come to in this second year of being able to have the teams be able to present their defense, be able to share with us what their criteria were in making these decisions, and really being able to highlight a number of different voices. The pandemic has made, I don't know, it's made our district feel very small in some ways, in that we don't see people in the chamber here. We haven't been able to really go to schools for the kinds of events that we usually do. And our subcommittees really, you know, in the past have been a very robust way where kind of the pockets of excellence that are spread across our district, we're able to kind of present directly to the committee, and more importantly, to our community. So I really am extremely thankful and impressed by the work that's been done by the school site councils that presented tonight, the administrative leadership from the school department and teachers, and I will say a very special thank you to the parents who are taking time out of their lives to be part of improving education here in the city, not just for their own children, but for children across the district. So this being year 2, I think we have made a strong showing, and I think that we do have kind of our marching orders for how we can improve this next year. Dr. Guillory, thanks for nothing, seeing as you won't be here, but you have laid a good foundation, and we will be very excited as we move forward to see the improvements continue as we continue this process. If there aren't any other questions or concerns, no, I would entertain a motion to adjourn by Mr. Dillon, seconded by Mr. Dakota. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.